All right, good evening to all of you in the UK, and good afternoon to all of us here in the United States. Welcome to the latest edition of the Daily Gooner Pod. Joining you from both sides of the Atlantic. I'm Raphael, joining you from the US, and of course, joining me, my regular cohort, London cohort, one of two. We're still waiting, dealing with sorting out Ryan's issues. But Sam, welcome back. Love the top, very classic Arsenal top you're wearing today.
Yes, very much so. And the first person I've got to do is shout out Rocky Nico for that, because as many are aware on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, he gets shirts and sells them on, and I was lucky enough to get this, so big shout to him.
Not only is the vintage, it's an Henri top, is it not?
It is indeed, yes.
I'm just dripping with envy. All right. So much to cover in this episode. Let's just call it the window and its discontents. We have to talk about Aubameyang. We have to talk about the failure to bring anybody in, the value of getting players out. What does that bittersweet, kind of incomplete window mean for Edu status as Arsenal's, we call him director of football. I don't know what the official title is, but he's the guy in charge of the transfers. And then we'll talk about the squad. This is Mikel's squad. I don't think there's any denying it now that after the last two windows, all the problem children have been weeded out. All the cliques have been cleared away. This is Mikel Arteta's squad. It's young, it's hungry, but is it big enough? It's got a big challenge in front of it. It still has a manageable, we're going to weigh the odds. Can they make top four? Also, very few matches coming up. They're in Dubai. They're working out. They must be working, Sam, on weeding out these red cards that have bedeviled them all the season. What can they do about that? And then finally, if winter window was a disappointment, they're set up for a massive summer window. We'll weigh all the various permutations they can go through, but let's begin. Yesterday, the window closed, and it marked the end of the Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang era at Arsenal Football Club. Sam, summarize it. There was good, but the last, 18 months were not good.
Yeah, you've got to think with Aubameyang, there's always been rumours around him, whether he was leaving when his contract was due for renewal. He stuck by us. Then performances started to wane for various reasons. For me, it's a bit sad the way that it's all gone about, because I've been an Aubameyang fan for absolutely years, and for me, it's bittersweet. It's a bit tainted, because loved him as a player, but then you start to see his flashiness towards the end, and then you start hearing that he's late for training, he's causing issues. Then the stripping of the captaincy because he's not upholding the values and traditions of the armband. You just think to yourself, what is really going on in this man's head behind the scenes? And then you're hearing about his being late back from flights, having the wrong paperwork during the pandemic, and you just think, guy, come on now. You're 32 years old. You should be setting an example. So for me, loved him as a player. What he's done at this club, and the rate that he scored goals was phenomenal. If let's be real with it, he's nearly scored 100 goals for this club in a very short amount of time, and that's a ridiculous achievement. And he's won his trophies as well, so yeah, it's bittersweet.
Yeah, same for me. I mean, he shared 2 golden boots when he first got here. I mean, I don't think there's any denying that in those first 2 seasons, he carried the club. He was their offense, and they leaned on him heavily. And until that contract, really, he came through. And it does seem that second deal is. It's almost we all of us. I don't think there were very, very few of us who were saying, "Let him go." I mean, we knew of his age, but he had been so monumental he was the goal provider, and I think all of us thought this club could fall off a cliff if he walked. But then it seems as soon as he got the big money, then the problem started. So, and also I think I'm going to echo what you said. It was so disappointing for me that his manager clearly looked to him to set the example, to lead for these young kids. And then where you see in the opening match, he's out with COVID. And I don't know if this is rumors, it's happenstance, but we heard stories of him going out and violating curfews, kind of violating COVID protocols, being risky, having parties at home, where he was exposing himself and putting the team in peril. And it just seemed that it was this very night and day change. And it's just, I'm with you, it's disappointing. I guess that's my word for it. And then here we are without a striker. He's out. Now, he hasn't been the provider, certainly not this season. And that raises the question. And I think it's foremost, this might have been the question we could have led with a couple of minutes ago. But all of us were talking about it yesterday. Aubameyang is out. And I think that's a good thing for the club. He had that massive contract. He terminated the contract. I've seen, correct me if I'm wrong, that this is going to save the club between 25 and 30 million pounds in salary they were obligated to cover it, and now it's gone. So that can only help the club going forward. But 2 matches ago, they were in 4th place, and they're still 6th. And we know that had they scored a goal against Burnley, they'd be in 4th place. They're that close to European football, and really that close to making top four. We've talked about it for the last two podcasts, 3, that the window is open. Chelsea has kind of stubbed their toe. Liverpool and City are kind of running away, but then around it, West Ham is struggling. United is struggling. Tottenham have their backlog. They're kind of hot and cold. They did some business, but it seems there might be 2 spots in that top 4 that are available. So we talked about what a great opportunity this is, and not getting that striker. I'll phrase it this way: if Aubameyang is gone, in failing to bring his replacement in this window, has Edu kind of greased the skins for his own departure? What do you think?
Yeah, do you know what I think they might have? Because realistically, Arteta sets the type of profile that he wants to bring to the club, and then that's down to Edu to go out and find the strikers, the players that are fitting of said profile. Now, it's quite evident that we wanted a tall, athletic, strong striker, and that goes in the build of Vahalovic, Isaac, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. You could also probably add Wout Weghorst to that as well, but he went to Burnley, so on a very cheap deal. So there were deals out there to be done. You've also got people like Darwin Núñez at Benfica. So there's players out there that could have come in and improved this side. But for me, I don't think that Edu has the capacity to really go out and get a player. I think with him, and I was quite vocal last night that it's time for him to go. With him, you look at the rumours that come out, you look at what the squad needs, and you're telling me as a technical director, this man cannot identify some players to make us better, considering that the majority of Europe is still COVID-stricken financially. So for me, he's got to go. I don't think that he's a benefit to this Arsenal Football Club. I actually think he's a hindrance, and I genuinely think if we have him in the summer, this billing of it's going to be a big summer is going to be pish, because I don't feel that he's got the capacity to bring the players that we need in. Now, we can all give him plaudits for the summer, because that was a very good summer. But I've got my hunches that other people were involved.
Well, and let's also look at the summer. He brought in the young, backline players, He brought in Lakonga in the midfield. He got Odegaard back on a permanent. We talked about that. The back line and the midfield were helped incredibly. Obviously, he got a keeper, a really frontline keeper. But what was the disappointment of the summer windows? The same disappointment we have here is that they had a chance to bring in Tammy Abraham. So now 2 windows in a row, 2 strikers that fit their profile. And we know in Abraham's case, he waited on Roma because he wanted to come to Arsenal.
Yeah.
You know, that when it happens twice in the span of 6 months, or less than 6 months, then I got to shake my head and say, okay, you know, you've booted 2 opportunities to solve it. And we were talking about this on the last podcast. Like, this club probably would be solid top 4 had Abraham been there from week 1. But that's all water under the bridge now.
Yeah, and this is the thing, Raf, is that if we as fans can see strikers that are available that suit the style of play and what essentially the club needs, then surely the club can see it. Now, I know there's a lot that goes into transfers, but I just feel that he hasn't got the capacity, and frankly, I don't think he's got the balls to be up front and to pay the people what they want up front. I think that he's too nice. He lets them go at their own pace. He won't chase up. He's just like, oh, I've made the effort. Oh, it's not working out. Oh, well, let's see what else I can do. And it's like, it's just wishy-washy. And I'm not being funny. I've said this from day dot. If we have a competent technical director, we've got a manager that's got all the tools that's needed. If we've got a competent technical director, we have a team that challenges for top 4 and possibly then goes on to challenge for titles. But if we're going to stick with Edu, that is, for me, that's just going to be completely off the table.
Well, and let me add something to this, because we see it on social media, and certainly leading up to the end of the window, it seems it comes up every time. It certainly was the big in the summer. The question after Super League collapsed, is KSC committed? And they said they were committed, and we saw them put money up in the summer. And what I can say, I write about the NFL here, and I've been watching the progress of their team in the NFL, the Los Angeles Rams. Well, the Rams are playing in the Super Bowl in 12 days. They won a spot in that championship game over the weekend, and they did it. They've had a nice run. And if you look at them, if you follow the NFL, you can see that KSC put a lot of money into the club. The club saw that they have an opportunity to win a championship this year, very early in the season, and they made a lot of bold moves. They sacrificed some of their future. They sacrificed future picks. They paid a lot of big contracts to veteran players, and they pushed their chips to the middle of the table sometime in October and November and said, we're going all in because the game is being played in their home stadium. And they thought, this is a wonderful opportunity. And here they are. They've come good on that. They're playing in the stadium. They got a game in Los Angeles on Sunday against San Francisco that they didn't expect because of other upsets. So that's a free game, and that's free revenue. It's outside the league shares during the regular season revenues. They have splits among the clubs, home and road. But in the postseason, if you get a free playoff game, you're realizing tens of millions of dollars in free money. And so leading up to the end of the window, I said, well, Arsenal's going to pay, right? Arsenal's not going to go hog wild on one club, on the Rams, which are their most expensive club, and go cheap on Arsenal, which is their second most expensive club, when also Arsenal are same position that the Rams were 3 or 4 months ago. They have a chance to get top 4 ahead of schedule. I don't think any of us thought they would challenge for top 4, but here they are. And we know, sorry, if you follow the Vlahovic deal, it wasn't because KSC wouldn't give them money. It was clear Arsenal was ready to pay. And you believe whatever story you want to. There's some out there that his agent was gaming things, that the plan all along, this was another Locatelli deal where there was all game to get him to Juve and that he didn't want to leave. Whatever you want to believe, Arsenal was used. It didn't matter. Arsenal put the money on the table. I don't think there's any question. And all of us, I think if you're looking for where's the flaw in this, I have to go back to you. I think you're right. I think, Ed, you that's the weak link in this. I mean, it seemed the manager wanted this player. The manager wanted Abraham. The club has said, do what you want. This is a club, if you look at KSC and the way they operate, they put in, call them general managers, directors of football, technical directors, do your title for all of their franchise and all their sports. And they just say, you run the show. We're not going to interfere. And that's clear here. And if you look at the other organizations, the Rams were very bold in a way that Arsenal simply were not. And for me, that comes, as you said, back to Edu.
Yeah. It's I just find it mad that obviously that we had the opportunity to kick on and we just haven't done it. And for me, that just sits on Edu's shoulders.
Now, but let's not wallow in misery here, okay? The window's closed, and the KSC will have to make a decision coming into the summer. Let's say that they finish 5th or 6th. Let's say they're in Europa, or maybe, let's not be doomsayers here because it's February 1st. We can do this. Let's just game it out. Maybe somehow they squeak in. They're competing against 3 other clubs, Tottenham, West Ham, United, who are all, nobody's a sure thing there. Injuries are going to play a part. Scheduling is going to play a part. Arsenal is going to have having a lot of time right now to take this young squad and practice and practice. It's almost like it is a winter break. It wasn't expected, but Arsenal's getting a winter break. So let's see what they can do with it. But regardless, if they finish anywhere between 4th and 6th, they're on schedule, they're ahead of schedule, right? So they've set themselves up. We know the money will be there. So again, I don't want to see them set up for disappointment again. And what I want to say now is, though, let's look at the squad. 17 matches left. This is Mikel Arteta's squad now, right? Let's look who's out in the last calendar year. Ozil's out. Mustafi's out. Guendouzi's out. The kids who were here in the summer, Maitland-Niles left. Kolasinac left this window. And obviously, Aubameyang's gone. Players who got into, that headbutted with their manager philosophically, that were, whatever. All the cliques are gone. It's a young squad, pretty much handpicked. Pablo Mari's gone. And we can assume that El Neni's going to leave in the summer. There's going to be more players out. The only players that they have left are players Mikel said, these are my players. And we know these guys are loyal to him. They've all compliment him. They rave about how much they love working for him and how much they've developed under him. All that said, does he have enough to get them there?
Well, if we run through the squad, we've got Ramsdale, Leno for goalkeepers, Tomiyasu and Cedric as right backs, Ben White and Gabriel's the starting centre backs. We've also got Bob Holding to come in. Then you've got Nuno Tavares and Kieran Tierney for the left back position. You've also got
still got 4 center mids, right?
Yeah, Partey, Xhaka, Lokonga, and El Neni. You've got Odegaard, Smith Rowe that can play there as well. You've also got Smith Rowe that can play with Martinelli on the left-hand side. You've got Pepe and Saka on the right-hand side. I'd say the weakness is probably in that centre-forward spot with Lacazette and Nketiah. But realistically, this core squad has got us to where we are now. I'm going to try to look at this more positively because we are where we are because the players that we've got. The players that went out in the January window, did they really have a big effect on our season today? Not really. No. I think combined they had what, 11 games between them?
Yeah. Aubameyang hasn't been playing in a while. He just hasn't been on the squad.
Exactly. So he's not been contributing. So if we're going to be saving on his 350k a week wages, that's a bit of a no-brainer. Why would you have a decreasing asset sitting on the bench, having the TV cameras pan to him at every God-given opportunity? Well, not even that. Just not even having him in the squad. But I think where we are at the moment, especially with the under 23s as well. We've got some very exciting players coming through. So if we do get one or two injuries, say in the attacking areas, we have got players that can come in and do a job from the bench. Now, a lot of fans will be asking, well, why haven't they been given a chance when they've been on the bench? I think it's just a case of where we were at the moment in the window is that we needed to get through that as best that we can. And essentially, we go with experience over youth in that instance. Do I think it was the right decision? Personally, I wouldn't be giving Nketiah any minutes moving forward. I'd be giving that to Beriev, who's the under 23 striker, because he's looked like he's too good for that level already. I'd also be looking at Amari Hutchinson as well. And I've been saying to Ryan in group chats and one-on-one through WhatsApp, saying that this guy has the capacity to be as good as Saka, in my opinion. But I think that he's got a bit more end product than what Saka has. So my hope is that he gets some game time in the first team. But ultimately, it's a short-term gamble. It's a massive short-term gamble. Now, I can't make any excuses for the January window that it wasn't good enough, if we're being honest. But it's a short-term gamble. I can get behind it. But I can't say the same for everybody that supports this club.
Sure, but we can only speak for ourselves. I want to bring up something, though. You just raised a point. I mean, we saw this because Arsenal has a lot of time right now. They're in Dubai. They only play like 2-3 matches in the next month. It's a very light schedule. We saw it after those first 3 matches where they had no goals, no points, and everybody was down. Then they got a break. An international break came, and Arteta said he got the best 2 weeks he'd had as manager, where he was able to bring the club in, and he realized they were still committed. And they came out of that, and they went on a long winless streak, and they really rocketed themselves up the table. Is this, if we're, putting our rose-colored glasses on, is this another opportunity like that? This is an even longer break. This is an even tighter squad. They've already shown what they can do. And who knows what he's bringing in. Given that, I'm going to give you 2 questions, but I'm going to just give you the first one up front. We know their issue certainly coming into this break, and it's kind of an unforced break. It's COVID-related, but they had trouble scoring. We saw it against Burnley. It was frustrating. Had they, Lacazette punched that goal in, we'd be talking about top 4 Arsenal, but they didn't. And that's been their issue in this calendar year. In January, they had trouble scoring. With the players he has, he's going to have a healthy Smith Rowe back. This came at the perfect time for Saka because Saka was getting overworked. Probably Odegaard was getting overworked. Martinelli, they were getting a lot of minutes, a lot of consecutive games. Now they can rest. We can make that run. How do they score with who he has? What changes? Does he have to make changes or just count on these guys to be healthier and available in the way they weren't in December and January?
I wouldn't necessarily say we need changes because obviously I know a lot of people will clamour for Martinelli to be our starting striker, but
right.
For myself, I don't believe that's a wise decision. I think that he's better coming in from the left. I also think that given the time that they're out in Dubai, it's going to be working on patterns of play, and we've got to hope that these patterns of play are able to drag people out of their position and be smart by Lacazette dropping in, but then my only concern is, as we saw against Burnley, is that Lacazette can be very hit and miss.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're essentially relying on Saka, Odegaard, or Martinelli or Emil Smith Rowe to score. But my concern is if they're playing wider, they're getting into the positions to assist. And let's not beat around the bush. I was at that Burnley game, and Burnley didn't come to win. They come to frustrate, and they got what they needed. They got the point. But my view in that stadium on Lacazette's goal was right behind the goal. And I'm not being funny. If he just uses his other foot, it's in. But
Tried to
he
right foot. Right.
yeah, he baffles me in terms of his shot selection. But that's football at the end of the day. One day it goes in, one day it doesn't. But I think that given what we've got and who we've got, he's the best option up there to start with. Because if you're looking at Eddie's not going to come in and link the play. Eddie just wants to get on to the end of things, and that puts us at the detriment. And I've got questions over both their work rates because they can both be very lazy, and it's quite funny because you watch the game back on TV and you're thinking, oh no, they've actually done all right here. But if you watch them in the stadium when the cameras aren't on them, Jesus Christ, the pair of them are lazy.
Now, I'm going to bring up a name. We talked about Aubameyang falling off the manager's radar, but we were talking in November, December that way about Nico Pepe. Now, Nico Pepe was in AFCON. He had an excuse in January, and he's certainly a player you were talking about on the right. Saka gets a little burned out. Saka still learning how to finish. He can set up, he can score some nice goals. He's still not a consistent finisher. Is this kind of an X factor now coming back, where he's already back? He's been back with the club a few days now. Ivory Coast is out. So what role could he play in getting the ball in the goal for the rest of the way?
Do you know what? I've been thinking about this, and his best games have come from the left, but obviously you got not Saka, Emil Smith Rowe and Martinelli out there, so I don't think he'll be getting any game time there. He had a quite successful career at Lille, playing as a second striker / false nine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that could be a interesting option because obviously we know how he gets defenders on toast and how scared that they get if they're in a 1v1 situation with him when he's got confidence. I must say and really stress when he's got confidence. I think that he's built his confidence up at AFCON. So it could be an opportunity for him there. But also, as I say, when Saka's getting a bit burnt out in games on the right hand side, he's ideal to come in because he's driving at tired defenders, and tired defenders make mistakes. And if he's able to get his tricks out and beat the man, I think that he could be a big asset. So in terms of us scoring goals, I think Pepe can definitely chip in with that. But I just think that Arteta needs to give him more minutes. I know that he's trying to give the youngsters all the minutes, but there comes to a point where they're burnt out, and this break will probably recharge their batteries. But I'd say 70-minute subs, that's always going to be beneficial to us as a team to score late in the second half. But I don't know. Just see what Mikel does, and I hope that Pepe gets reintegrated well and gets some minutes on the pitch because he's definitely got something to offer. I just think that it's been his confidence that he hasn't been able to do more.
All right, now let's talk about the flip side. Another thing that bedeviled this team, and not just in January, really in January, but all the way through the season. And they have to be working on eliminating yellows and reds, straight reds, when they're in Dubai. I mean, we can talk about the referees, we can talk about the poor quality of the officiating in the Prem, the inconsistency. I mean, some of these yellows and some of these reds do seem to be harsh, and we can point to say Arsenal doesn't get away with, or isn't allowed to get away with, some things that other clubs do. But that said, Shaka. Partey, for whatever reason, 10 minutes and he's got on a red, coming straight back off AFCON. They're back now. And this is going to be a big part of Arsenal being able to make a successful run, is keeping their key midfielders on the pitch.
Yeah, and do you know what I think it is? Is when they're both playing with Sambi, and this isn't a slight at Sambi, by the way. I think that they feel that they need to take on too much responsibility, and they try
Mm.
to do too much. But when they're both playing with each other, I think that that responsibility gets shared, and they that partnership brings out the best in them. I think that it's difficult to try and train to get the red cards out of the team because that I'll probably get grilled by my mates for saying this, but I don't think that's an Arsenal problem. I think that that is purely a refereeing problem because you look at Arsenal games, we get booted left, right, and centre. A player can make 6 or 7 fouls and not get a booking. Our player will make 2 fouls and they'll be sent off. And you look at the 6 or 7 from the opposition team, you're like, well, that's yellow. That's worse. That's borderline red.
Mm-hmm.
Half the time they don't even get spoken to. And you just think to yourself, what do the opposition need to do to actually get sent off here? Because they can commit murder and probably still get away with a yellow card.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with Mikel, obviously we all saw in the All or Nothing Man City documentary, he was saying about making tactical fouls. Arsenal try to make tactical fouls, but we always get pulled up for it. So it's a case of, I think Mikel may be telling them to get a bit smarter. You notice that when this happens as well, our players surround the referees to try and put the pressure on. But yeah, it's a difficult one. I don't think that you can coach cards out of players.
Mm.
I think that it's a refereeing issue.
Okay, well then they make the best of it. But now let's look at this. I think we've squeezed as much as we can out of this week. Certainly, as when we come back on the pod, we'll be closer to actual matches and we can talk about matchups. But let's talk about where the squad is now. It's a very thin. It's a short squad. I don't want to say it's thin. I mean, we know it needs depth. That's going to be a priority in the summer, and that's going to be my lead into the next question. Is that we know what their priorities were coming into this window. Obviously, priority 1 and probably 2 is a striker. They may need 2 strikers this summer. Let's begin there. What is on the shopping list? What are the priority 1 or 2 positions? Obviously, we know they need depth at certain places, but where do they need starters and where do they need quality rotation players? I think and let's start with this supposition. We've talked about this. Arteta talked about this. This is another reason they didn't run out and just get players on loan or get players in the short term. They think they're at the point now where they've cleared out enough positions that they only want players who are better or as good as players they already have.
Yeah, and that's it's going to be interesting because you look at the squad and who's going in the summer and who's potentially going as well. We basically need a whole new 11, essentially.
Some of the players they need, right?
I'd say up to 11. To be honest.
Okay, well let's start at the back. We know that they signed their backup keeper. He's in MLS right now. Plays with New England Revolution. We haven't talked about him. We know Bernd Leno's going to go, but they seems they've lined up their backup. They're going to William Saliba. We assume there's stories out of Spain that Real Madrid want him, but I can't believe Arsenal is not going to give him an opportunity to win his position. All right. So far, there's a center back. They're going to need a right back. So that's position 1. Let's count them out. There's position 1. Okay. They need another rotation player with Tomiyasu. So there's 1. Let's go into the defensive mid. We know El Neni's leaving. That's 2.
Might as well go back to the centre back because it'll be likely that Rob Holding will be going.
No, that's 3. Okay. Now, is Granit Xhaka the 4th? We know Roma's made noise that they want to come back for him. They tried for him this summer. So is he number 4?
Yep.
Okay.
So you get essentially, if I run through it, we've got the goalkeeper. We're going to need a new backup right back because Cedric's likely to be going. You'd need another backup defender because
True.
Bob Holding's going to be going. Likely that Shaka goes in the summer, so that's a centre midfielder.
El Neni.
El Neni goes, so
That's
you
four.
need two centre midfielders, possibly another one to cover Champions League if we get Champions League or Europe. You're then looking at
Is Pepe going this summer? I would have to think he is.
more than likely. So you're going to need a backup right
6.
winger. You're also going to need somebody to back up Erdegaard if we're going to continue with another 10, because I firmly believe Smith Rowe is going to be
11.
situated out on the wing. You
How many
then need,
strikers? 2?
I'd possibly go as far as 3.
But minimum 2. They need 2. I think that's a safe assumption.
Yeah, minimum of 2. But I'd say
Okay, so we're up
3.
to 9 players. So maybe not 11, but that's a lot of players.
Yeah.
How many are going to come from the academy? What they count on? I don't think they're going to sign 9 players. I think that's I mean, we can game it out, but that's a lot of players to buy in one window.
Yeah, so I think who's the guy at Millwall at the moment? I think I believe it's Dan Ballard, the centre backs at Millwall. So I think he might come in and be the fifth choice centre back.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I don't really see much coming through from the under 23s. I think that the majority of them will get loans next season to get a full season under their belt.
Realistically, though, we say 9 as on paper, and remember this summer they brought in what, 5, right?
Yeah.
Could we see another? I'm guessing we could see another 5 or 6 in the summer.
But then you're still leaving your squad short, and then you're also factoring in Europe.
Yeah. Okay. You're going to need You're going to need extra bodies because you're going to have a lot extra if you're in Europe with a lot more matches. So
yeah. So when I say you need a whole new 11, essentially you need 2 players for every position. That's going not, oh, he's my starting player and you're my backup. It's you fight for that position.
You're player 1A and player 1B, maybe. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially you're keeping the same construct of the team, the philosophy, the pattern of play, what you're doing. And it doesn't matter what player comes in, they're both going to be equally adept at playing that and being assured. So essentially you're then building a team that's able to fight on all fronts. We've seen it far too often with Arsenal. We get in good positions when we have been in Europe, and we play the same 11 in Premier League matches when games build up, and then sorry, we get to Champions League or we get to Europa League, and we're fielding a weakened side, and it's dicey. That's not a position that Arsenal Football Club should be in, because we've had for far too long a first 11 and then a backup, and the backups have not been good enough.
We're seeing it right now. I mean, we see it when Tomiyasu's injured and they have to. Cedric is just not quite up to it, right? So, I mean, he's game, but gets injured. It's a bit of a step down. I think we see it when Eddie has to come on. Depending on the level of play, if it's a Prem match, he seems a little overmatched, but we knew that from last season, and I don't see he's any more comfortable, certainly against, say, the top half of the table when he has to come in a Prem match.
Yeah, but you've also got to look at Eddie and you think, is his head here?
Good point.
Because you've got to think, is his head here? Is he going to give his all? Because for all we know, he could have a pre-agreed deal with somebody that's not been announced or released yet. So you know, how 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 can a guy, and this goes for Lacazette actually, how can a guy that is not 100% here come next season going to give their best for this club? Because there's always going to be that doubt over them.
No, let's talk about that, because immediately once the window closed, I've seen it in group, I've seen it on social media, a lot of like reflexive reaction that, well, now given who they have left, Lacazette's going to get an extension offer. I have to think that's kind of doomsaying. I think if they wanted to keep Lacazette, they would have given him something in the summer. Arteta really was coy about that, and even early in the season, when Aubameyang was tailing off, they could have stepped in and said, "Hey, we're really going to count on you, Alex." That hasn't happened. To me, I mean, I think that the silence speaks more than anything else. I think that's just people trying to fill a vacuum, but I could be wrong. I don't know if you've heard different.
But do you know what? The one quote that stands out for me with Mikel Arteta every time he's asked about an Alex Lacazette extension is, "We'll speak about it in the summer."
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you speak about it in the summer, he's going to be out of contract.
True. Okay.
I also don't believe Lacazette wants a 1-year contract. He wants to secure his long-term future. So I think that he's looking more towards 3 or 2+1, and Arsenal are not going to commit that to him.
No, not him. They're giving it all to young players, right? And maybe there's somebody, this Thomas Partey might be the case. Somebody who's 26, 27, they might get, whose quality might earn a lengthy contract, but it's not going to be somebody on the far side of 30 as Alex Lacazette is now. No. So I have to agree with you on that one.
I think if you're looking at renewals, Saka's going to be the key one.
And we're already hearing that. And we're hearing the manager's getting his extension. Obviously, we saw it. We haven't talked about it. We did talk about it briefly, that he was in Colorado at the beginning of the break, flew over and talked to the Cronkies, ostensibly about the end of the window, but also about his extension. And it seems that, it's already leaked to the press that's on the table, that's in the works. I would have to think that, however disappointed he may be, he's got assurances that, well, you've got your squad now. This is your hand-picked squad, and we'll flesh it out for you.
Yeah, I think so, but unfortunately, it all goes back to Edu. It depends how competent he is at his role, because for me, I don't see Arteta signing the contract if he's not given the right tools to work with. And that comes back to your technical director. And also, you've got. I don't want to be fear-mongering, but you've also got to take into consideration Pep's out of City in 18 months. And they're lining Arteta up as their next manager. Well, him and possibly Vieira, either one of them as their next manager. So if we're going to secure Arteta, which in my opinion we really need to,
well,
something's got to give.
Pure speculation on my part. All right. But I have to think that, and I don't know if this is in Mikel's character, but I would have to think after these last 2 windows that he might say, if you want me to sign that contract, I need to see changes above me. I need to trust that whoever is in charge now is going to get me the players I want, because I've seen, and we talked about this earlier with Abraham and Vlahovic, that you didn't get me my striker. And this in window's too important. If he fails again, I could see Mikel Arteta maybe playing chicken or looking for, show me something you want or you're not going to get my signature. But I don't see him as that kind of player, as that kind of manager, as that kind of person. On the other hand, I think he has every right to do that, given what we've seen.
Oh, I see him as being that person. He's ruthless.
Okay.
He expects the best, and if it's not happening, he is ruthless in terms of basically getting rid of people. And that
Well, he's gotten rid of his players he doesn't want. It might be time for him to kind of turn his attention to his technical director and say, okay, I need you to be as dependable and loyal as dependable for me as my players are.
Yeah.
And I agree with the comment on the screen right now. Edu has not earned that trust. If anything, it's the opposite.
Yeah, so. And I think the more transfers windows go on, the more fans are seeing it.
Yeah, you can't hide it anymore. No. As we said, it's 2 windows in a row. 2 striker targets, 2 prime striker targets, fit the profile, age, size, skill set. Manager wants them, and they're not here. One's in Roma and one's in Juventus. So Arsenal shouldn't, from a financial perspective, should not be losing players to those squads. We can argue that, Vlahovic wanted to stay in Syria. But Tammy Abraham didn't. Tammy Abraham's an English player. He wanted to stay in London, and he's not here. So,
indeed.
Do you want to take that question about the backups? They were backups, Cedric and Pablo Mari. I mean, I don't think Arteta's perfect in this. I think Mari might be his guy, but I don't remember. Cedric has been a while. I don't remember the details of that one.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one because obviously we signed Mari on the loan first and foremost, and I believe that was when Sanielli was here,
mm-hmm.
And then ended up signing him when on a permanent when Arteta's here. So I think that it was a case of, well, he's here, he's working, because if you assess Mari's first 6 months, it was actually quite good. He seemed to adapt to the league. He read plays. It's only more recent seasons that he's another one that went downhill. But Cedric Suarez, that was a Raul Sanelli. That is a Raul Sanelli signing, because reading back, and I believe it's been documented in The Athletic, that when he was being chased, it was well given that Ainsley Maitland-Niles was going to be going out. So I believe it was to Wolves at the time. So Sanelli forced the signing through, and then ultimately Maitland-Niles ended up staying, and then we had Chambers there as well, and it's been well documented that we've had three right backs, plus then Tomiyasu coming in making it 4 right backs. So unfortunately, with the old technical director, the old regime, and even the old manager, it's been a slog, and they've really put this club back. But if you look at what Arteta and Edu to a certain degree have done, they've slashed the wage bill to around 90 million, all in all, and that's no mean feat. So if you're thinking about that as a wage structure, you're bringing in people that won't be on I say won't be on massive wages, depends who we go for. If we're going for top tier, then we've got the wages available for them to go, okay, you're the elite type of player, you will get elite wages. You're going in for people that will come in and be a part of the working of the squad and challenge for first team, go, okay, this is the wage structure, this is where you fit into it. We're essentially keeping our money liquid as it stands. So the summer is going to be a massive one for us if we can get Europe and if we can get Champions League, essentially. That's what it boils down to.
Right. Do you think there's tiers there? I mean, I would assume there are, but to say they get into Europa, they get so much money, they're able to somehow squeak into Champions League. There's even more, or do you think the thinking is we have to put the squad together next year because then next year we're getting top 4. That's just going to happen. Whether it happens this year or not, we're getting it next year.
Yeah, I think that if there's if we get Europa League, the signings will be Europa League level, but top Europa League. So probably someone like, I don't know, someone like Ruben Neves would come in. That caliber of player, the type of player that go, okay, that's the type of player that we can get into. We've got into Europa League. They're the type of player that's going to push you on to Champions League and then go big. But if we get Champions League, then boy, that opens up some doors.
All right, but let's wrap it up here. Obviously, nothing's changed. This was top priority to finish the summer. Top priority in this window. Striker. Who's out there? I mean, people were looking yesterday, fingers crossed. Alex Isak, is he the guy who's going to come in? Does he move to the top of the target queue for the summer?
Do you know what? I think if we're looking at two strikers, I think if you're looking at it for a perfect combination, you probably look at Alexander Isak and Jonathan David, because they're two profiles that do very different things. And given the nature of the league, given the nature of opposition, you need different strikers for different types of games. So it would give us a lot of different options. It's just if we had to select one, I would probably go with Jonathan David.
Okay, so a lot to chew on. Again, it's just the beginning of February. Long way to go. A lot of matches to go, though. They're spaced out one a week for the remainder of the season. We want to appreciate the questions. We have some really good questions in the comments today. We welcome you. Come on back. We want to thank all the people who are out, following us on StreamYard. Come back and join us next Tuesday at this time. We're here. Hope to have Ryan back in and put the full trio together. But again, to our commenters and to all of you out in the world, we want to say, we wish there was a match this weekend that we can promote, but football will be back soon enough, Sam. We look forward to that. Just going to let the end of this window wash away. Take a deep breath and get ready for the run.
Yeah, exactly. We've essentially got to take that deep breath, recharge the batteries, and then get behind the side and hopefully get top four moving forward.
All right. Well, on that, again, optimistic note, we're going to bid you all a good evening. For me, I'm Raphael. For my partner, Sam, and for our erstwhile partner, Ryan, who we hope to have back very soon, we bid you all a good night.